guys, so welcome back to my natural hamster cage series. Today we are doing part 3. If you've missed part 1 and 2, like always, they will be linked down in the description. If this is the first part you're seeing, I definitely recommend going and checking out those two first, just so you're not completely confused. But in today's video, we're going to be setting up my dwarf hamster's new cage. If you have any questions about what cage I'm using, what any of this stuff is behind me, that is all in part 1. And if you have any questions about all the materials that are going into the cage, that is all in part 2. So everything you need to know before watching this video can be found down in the description. But if you've already seen part 1 and 2, I'm sure you guys are really excited for part 3 because today we're finally going to be setting up his enclosure. Like always, before we get started, I want to give a huge thank you to Carefresh for sponsoring this series and making it all possible. You guys know that Carefresh is usually my go-to bedding. I really just love the odor control and all the different colors it comes in. So like always, the links to Club Carefresh and Carefresh Gives Back will be down in the description. Please go check those out. Carefresh is amazing at supporting me, so if you guys could support them back, that would mean a lot to me. So if you want to get some coupons sent to your email, or if you want to nominate a local animal shelter to win free bedding, make sure you check out those links to Carefresh Gives Back and Club Carefresh down in my description. Thank you so much, Carefresh, for sponsoring this series and making it all possible. Now let's get on to the video. So like I said, in this video, I'm finally going to be setting up his cage. Before I actually start setting it up, I wanted to talk about the lids really quick. I haven't shown them yet in this video because they weren't ready, but I have been getting a lot of questions, and yes, I will be using lids for this cage. Since this isn't actually a hamster cage and it is a modified shelf, it doesn't come with a lid, and if you want to use any type of lids, you do have to make them yourself. A lot of people actually don't use lids if they don't have any other animals that can get into the cage, but for me personally, that just isn't a risk that I'm willing to take, and I'll just feel a lot better having a lid on the cage, so I did go ahead and make one. Well, I say I made one. Actually, my parents were nice enough to make one. I do have a lot of footage that I'm going to be showing over this of when we were trying to make these. This definitely isn't going to be a tutorial on how to make the lids at all, because all the footage I'm showing you, we actually didn't end up using these lids. So the dimensions and everything that we were building in these clips was fine, but when I went to the store to buy the wood, I actually bought the wrong type of wood. The wood I bought was just like some compressed wood. It wasn't actually solid wood, and that caused a problem when we went to put stuff together. Since the wire is really strong, it was making it warp a little bit, and then if we try to use more screws to reinforce it, the wood would just split. So unfortunately, we weren't able to use these exact lids. So my parents took the dimensions and actually went back to their house and made them for me. So thank you to my mom and dad for making these amazing lids. I believe the wood they ended up using that worked great is white pine because it is more of a solid wood, so they didn't have to worry about it splitting or anything. So like I said, I'm not going to show you a tutorial for these lids because I actually didn't make them, but it's a pretty simple concept. It's just 4 pieces of white pine that you do around the edge and then put some hardware mesh just like you use for bin cages on there. Right now I actually don't have the handles on yet. I still need to attach the handles. You guys will see those in part 4, but overall those are the lids and I'm very happy with them. They fit very well and they look pretty nice because they are white, so they match the cage. So like I said, some people don't use a lid for this cage, but since it is pretty short, I wouldn't feel comfortable personally not using a lid. Even if it was taller, I'm just very paranoid and would want to use a lid. But that is the lid. So yes, I do have a lid. I've been getting asked a ton of questions about that. So now that I have that cleared up, it is time to actually set up the enclosure. Like I said, if you have any questions on any of the items that I'm putting in here, the big haul showing everything I'm using is in part 2. I have a general idea of how I want to set it up, but I'm sure a lot of stuff is going to change. Even after I set it up, I'm sure a lot will change between now and part 4. I'm sure you guys will have some great suggestions down in the comments, and I know there are still a couple items that I need to get after looking at everything, but I'm going to do my best to set it up today. I'm also going to do my best not to get in front of the camera. I don't film videos like this very often because you have to be really careful with your camera angles and not standing in front of it, and that's not always the first thing on your mind when you're trying to set up a cage. So I'm going to do my best to show you as much of this as possible, but now let's go ahead and start setting up Gerg's new enclosure. Okay, so there is the cage. Hopefully I did a decent job not standing in front of the camera for too much of that video. I'm not doing a full cage tour in this video because that is actually going to be part of part 4. So in part 4, I'm going to be doing a full in-depth cage tour along with actually moving Gurg in. Unfortunately, part 4 is going to be a little bit delayed. I've been posting these once a week, but part 4 probably isn't going to be up for at least a couple more weeks, because if you watched my video about a month ago, you know that I took Gurg to the vet and he did end up having mites. He's been on medication, but he went back in for a checkup and they're not completely healed yet, and I don't want to risk anything and put him into this new cage before I know he is completely free of mites. So part 4 is going to be a little bit delayed, so I just have to sit here and look at this lovely empty cage while I continue to treat Gurg and make sure his mites are completely clear. Like I said at the beginning, I'm sure there are going to be a few changes that I'm going to make before part 4. Of course, you saw I didn't put a water bottle in, so I will be getting a glass water bottle. Also, I know a lot of people have concerns with the bendy bridges when they're up on their ends because hamsters' legs can get caught in those, so I do need to get some rocks or something to glue to the top of that. And also with the wheel, in part 2 I mentioned that I'm not sure about peeing on the wheel, and a lot of you recommended I use plastic coat down in the comments. I've been looking it up and I'm not sure if I can get that specific thing here in the US. So if you are in the US and you have any recommendations of what I can use to waterproof that wheel, please let me know down in the comments. I've been looking a little bit, but I just want to be completely sure that it's safe before I go and coat that expensive wheel in anything and ruin it. So hopefully I'll be doing that before part 4. And I also need to seal one of the corners. I found out while putting the sand in that one corner is actually not completely sandproof, which makes sense because there's no silicone or anything on it. So I probably will get a little bit of pet safe silicone since no one's going to be in here for a few weeks, and just seal up that corner, that way no more sand falls out. But like I said, a full cage tour will be coming in a few weeks in part 4. I'm sorry for the delay, but of course I have to make sure Gurg is healthy and ready to go in before I film that. Before I leave, once again, huge thanks to Carefresh for sponsoring this entire series and making it all possible. Make sure you check them out down in the description. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time.